Dun dun dun. Hello, everyone. Hello, Cooper. How are you, Cooper?
I'm feeling rather green.
Yeah, there he is. There's our green boy. All right, so we have to
I
still
am.
do our little audio thing here at the beginning because I haven't been able to get that resolved on my end. But we're testing one other thing. I've got the volume cranked all the way up, and I've been told that this should hopefully balance Cooper and I out enough to be at least listenable. So let us know if I'm too
Testing,
loud.
testing, testing, testing. Hello, hello, hello. Hola. How?
Hola. Trey 50 Daniel says, Hola, as they say south of the border, that we might actually have now. What do you think of that, Cooper? What do you think of the fact that we may actually have a border?
Mm,
How does give us the perspective of one of the northern wretches?
um, I honestly don't really think about it that much. It's not in my backyard,
Right. Yet.
yet.
Cooper's audio isn't overloading yours now. Okay, good. That is the goal. The goal is
Are
for us to just at least be the same.
are they relatively close? Are they equal?
I can't believe that we were able to we went for so long with things being
Yeah, dude. I
as
went
off
back
as
and
they were.
listened to the interview we did with Oren, and he and I sound like the same, and then you're like half as loud.
That's so
So every
weird. I
time
don't know
every time
why.
you were talking and I was listening back, I'd have to like crank up my stereo.
Well, that's not good. That's not good. Well, hopefully we've got that resolved. I'm working on getting OBS figured out as well as doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So I think we're going to start using OBS here shortly. And if this works, then that buys me some time. I've just got the volume on my end cranked up to 150%. I just get one little slider, and that's all I can do. I can't get it any higher than it is. So the only other solution from here is to try to make Cooper quieter, but I don't know if that's a great solution. So
I mean, I
um,
could do that. I can just mess with my gain knob here. I should crank it up all the way and blow everyone's speakers. That's what I should do. I don't know if it'd blow their speakers or if it would like just start
piss
clipping.
them off. Oh yeah,
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 I don't
that's true.
know.
It'd probably just start clipping.
And sound really distorted.
Your mortal enemy is threatening to make Ohio and Michigan band together against Texas.
Ain't gonna happen.
No, no, I think Ohio's on its own.
Wait, didn't Ohio didn't they aren't they getting behind Texas?
That's what I've heard. I actually haven't followed
Who's the
everything super
governor?
closely
Who's
for the
who's the
last
governor of Ohio?
Mike DeWine.
Oh, okay, yeah, I don't know.
I haven't followed that super closely today because I've been working on some other stuff.
Marshall, I'm not Jewish. I might be like 1%.
Ninja Turtle.
I'm
Do you
like a
like
weak.
tunnels?
I don't know. I haven't really spent a whole lot of time around tunnels.
I really like to take the question seriously. I've been in caves a few times,
I
and
went to
it
Mammoth
is
Caves in Kentucky.
yeah, I haven't been there. I've gone like into caves
Spelunking?
where yeah, like where you like have to crawl through certain areas and stuff. I'm good. No, that's not. People don't belong there. I don't understand
Yeah.
these videos. I saw one the other day of some guys who were going through a tunnel that was probably I don't know, maybe 3 feet like from top to bottom, and it was half full of water. And the guys, and it was getting lower and lower as they were going along there, and so they're having to like go through and like keep their mouth up to try to keep their mouth like so they can breathe. And then one of the guys just lost his mind, just completely freaked out, and was like, "Nope, I got to get out!" And just like steamrolled the other guy and mashed him into the side of the cave, and like bashed his face. His face is all bloody and everything, and just scrambled out. Would had just had a total panic attack, and I was like, just don't go in there in the first place. There's no good reason to go through. I don't care if Agartha's on the other side. We don't need to find Agartha if it means we have to go through shit like that.
Well, if I knew for a fact that it was on the other side, I might risk it.
Yeah.
But if I
I'll
don't
let
know
you take
that
some
it
pictures
is,
and bring them back.
okay.
Have
Go
you
to
heard about the
Narnia.
guy in I don't remember which state it was, but he was like spelunking and got stuck upside down.
Oh
He
yeah,
got
and
back
then
into a place and they
just
couldn't get him out and he
yeah.
died of
Well,
heart failure.
yeah. Apparently, that particular. Okay, so in that particular cave system, there was a famous passage called the birth canal or something like that.
Yeah.
That's really tight, and he thought he was at the birth canal because this is really tight. So he just kept digging himself in deeper, thinking that it would open up, and it never did. And then they couldn't get him out, and he just died there.
Oh man. And it took him hours. He was stuck upside down, completely wedged in, couldn't move forward or backward at like this angle for I don't know. I think it was like
Like 2
18
days or
hours
something.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just I mean, I like I'm starting to get antsy just thinking about it. I'm good. I'm good. William Leonard says, I used to do foundation repair and restoration in LA. We had to crawl underneath houses in the dark. One can get over claustrophobia. I don't doubt that one can get over claustrophobia. And I'm not that claustrophobic.
I'm not claustrophobic, but I think, going into a cave
Yeah.
in the dark.
Being in a tight space wouldn't bother me that much. Like if I had to like squeeze through like a really tight opening or something like that, or like there's a really narrow passageway I had to go through, that wouldn't bother me. It's the being underneath significant heavy things and being in a tiny place. So if it's like a house up above me or a building or like feet of rock and earth, yeah, no, I'm good. I don't. That's not the way that I want to go out. I do not want to go out buried underneath a bunch of dirt, getting slowly crushed to death and suffocated.
I had a teacher in high school she was like a morbidly obese lesbian who liked going spelunking.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. That was there. There's the jokes are just really springing to mind here.
She also used to go like swimming with sharks in the cage, and like you get in the cage and go down underwater and swim with the sharks. She liked
That's
doing
pretty
that
cool.
too. She was pretty adventurous for being like a middle-aged lesbian who was, I don't know, probably 360 pounds.
Holy crap. All right. Well, for those of you who this is your first time watching, welcome. This is King Pilled. I am Matt, and that's Cooper. And we are we're streaming on YouTube. We're streaming on Twitter. We're streaming on Facebook. You can like our Facebook page. It says King Pilled, the name of the show. You can follow me on Twitter at Real King Pilled. You can follow him at Cooper Brooks, even though he'll never tweet anything. And then do us a favor and like the stream. We've got we've got 22 people watching and 8 likes. Come on, you guys. 22 live watchers, 8 likes.
I do have apprehension about spiral staircases.
Really?
Well, okay, specifically narrow spiral staircases, and additionally carrying things up and down narrow spiral staircases. That kind of gets my
That's
neck all tense. One. There's a story there. In any case,
is it a story worth telling?
Not really. Just enough of a story to like imprint in my brain and kind of make my palms sweat when I think about it.
Do you know why spiral staircases typically spiral the way they do?
Is it like the Coriolis effect or the Doppler effect or something?
There may be something to that. I don't know. I know that the way that they like medieval castles constructed their spiral staircases so that someone who was coming up the stairs would be awkward if you're like right-handed holding a sword and coming up the stairs as everything's constantly curling around to the right. It makes it hard to sword fight. But if you're coming down, it's a lot easier. That's the explanation I was given, at least, and it makes sense to me.
And my other mortal enemy is talking
they're
shit
both
in the
here.
chat. I didn't say I don't like spiral staircases aren't cool. I think they're awesome, but I just
you just don't want to be on them.
I've got some history. In any case, I'm a week into a cut.
How's that feel?
It feels 2 pounds lighter and kind of hungry.
See, the way that I decided to cut was I just got really sick and didn't eat for 3 weeks. And
Yeah, that'll do it.
like magic, I lost 20 pounds. And I managed to keep it off.
Probably mostly muscle.
Yeah, probably. $4.99 super chat from our good friend Marshall Forward. Thank you, man. He says, also everyone super chat. I fully endorse this message. We will not at all stand in the way of you giving us money. We're very happy for you to give us money. So this is another one of those where I don't know to what extent you guys, the bulk of our listeners, I don't know to what extent you guys are extremely online the way we are, or the way I am at least, particularly extremely on Twitter. So I don't know to what extent you guys are clued into everything that's going on, but we're going to cover the bases just so, as we weigh in with our opinion and our guaranteed to be right predictions and such things, you guys are all on the same page. So yesterday, obviously there's this issue at the border with the Texas border. The federal government has been going in, and the border patrol has been going in and cutting the fences, cutting and removing and lifting. There's like video of them using like forklifts to lift the border fence up that that Texas has installed to let illegal immigrants in. The federal government is actively letting illegal immigrants in, and they've been coming in by, I think it was 8 million in 2023 that came in, which is just an absolutely staggering number. First of all, it's fascinating to me that we have a documented number of the number of illegal immigrants in the country. So it's like they can count them. They've counted them. They know how many there are, but they're there. They're just letting them in. Like, it's funny that they haven't even been like not even counting. They're just like, they let them in and they're just like, oh yeah, just kind of disappear. So that makes me think that the 8 million number might even be understating it. I don't know how they got that.
I guarantee it's understated.
Yeah. Which would mean if that's understated, I mean, 10 million, 15 million. This is just an absolutely staggering number of people who have entered the country illegally. And I mean, I'm sure some of them are going to justify their stay, but
that's like the population of like
LA.
Like, yeah, a sprawling metropolis.
Yeah. They're just, it's incredible. Cable says he's betting it's more like 12 to 15. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
And
20? Who knows?
Yeah.
Freaking 30?
Frankly, it's such a huge expanse as well that, I mean, honestly, you could, that number of people could spread out fairly well, but even then, there's still, the effect is being noticed. The cost
you get to a certain point, like you get to a certain number where just like the number stopped meaning anything in my head. Like you could say 30 million or you could say 30 trillion, and this wouldn't really make in my head. It wouldn't make a difference. It's like that's beyond
like uncountable number.
Yeah, it's beyond my conceptual ability.
So
they're just zeros on a page.
So the Supreme Court ruled narrowly. Now there's some people who they're not quite. We have to be autistic here. They're not. Some of them aren't quite getting exactly what happened here, what the Supreme Court ruled on. It was actually an extremely narrow ruling for the Supreme Court. All they did is say that while this case is waiting to be heard in the Fifth Circuit Court, that the federal government has the right to go in and cut the barriers that Texas has erected. It's a very narrow ruling, which I think is in part because they are they're essentially doing something kind of comparable. We were talking about this in the King Pilled Discord last night on the voice chat, and it was kind of comparable to what happened with Texas v. Pennsylvania in 2021 with the Electoral College case. I don't know how freely I can speak on this particular subject. That particular case, the Supreme Court basically just punted on it because I think this is like an act of self-preservation by the Supreme Court justices themselves. They're like, these are issues that are above our pay grade. We're not getting into it, so we're going to provide opinions on the least rocking the boat way possible. So in this particular case, they're like, this is an issue that needs to be sorted out between the states and the federal government, and we're not getting involved. So as a consequence of this, we talked about this in the last episode, that we were like, okay, well, I wonder what Greg Abbott's going to do. And my suspicion was that Greg Abbott was going to tell the feds to go kick rocks. And sure enough, he did. But he did it in even more, startling fashion than I expected him to. So this is the letter that he posted on Twitter yesterday, which, first of all, for the people who say Twitter doesn't matter, that Twitter isn't real life, Twitter is the exclusive platform that major government officials are choosing to communicate.
Hey, quick detour. GH in the chat says, it's interesting. Conservatives advocate for free speech and present themselves as anti-cancel culture, and yet they ghost ban people on these chats every chance they get. Is he talking about us?
I have no idea. I don't even know what ghost ban means.
Yeah, I don't know either. I see him on the Restream. I don't see him on the YouTube chat, even though Restream is saying he's commenting on YouTube. Do you know what that's about?
Let's see.
You might have just got yourself banned, dude. Like, this might be a you and YouTube problem.
If you switch from top chat to live chat on YouTube, then I see it. I see his comment there. He said, ghost ban is when a wrench bans you without knowing. Oh, I see what he's saying. Did you just realize there's a difference between top chat and live chat?
I didn't know that was a thing.
I don't know what the point is or what the difference is. Like, I don't know how they decide what's going to be top. Apparently, they didn't think GH's comment was considered top because it wasn't visible.
Huh. Yeah.
So,
for real. Like, I'm a boomer. Boomer moment. Holy cow. Kyle didn't know either.
Yeah.
I'm not the only retard here.
You're in good
I was
company.
always wondering, like, why some things show up on Restream and not on YouTube. I never put that together.
It always defaults to top chat for whatever reason. And I genuinely can't fathom what they use to differentiate between the two, or even what the purpose of it is. I guess maybe if you have a ton of commenters and the comments are flying by, then whatever their algorithm picks out as the top ones, you might want to see those. But I don't it's just odd. We use YouTube because it's what's here. But
sorry, guys.
Yeah. So this was Greg Abbott's the letter that Greg Abbott posted, and where he chose to announce this was Twitter. This is one of the most significant statements I've seen from a U.S. politician in a very long time. We'll get into it. So January 24, 2024, he says, the federal government has broken the compact between the United States and the states. That is a whopper of a sentence, particularly in the current climate. Notice he didn't say the Biden administration. He didn't say the White House. He didn't say the executive branch. He didn't say the Democrats. He said the federal government. That's a strong statement. And I'll say too, Greg Abbott has a reputation for being a squish, and by starting to tweet about this sort of stuff, I've attracted the single dumbest group of people I've ever encountered in my life. Perfect timing, Cooper. Cooper would be number 2. The single dumbest group of people that I've ever encountered are the people who are rabidly pro-Trump and rabidly anti-Greg Abbott, to the extent that, on this issue, they're like, oh, it doesn't mean anything. Or, in fact, they're like, this is bad. You guys shouldn't be happy about this because he's working on importing H-1B Pajeets. I've had these retards in my comments for the last couple of days. I'm like, how do you guys tie your own shoes? How did you manage to create a profile on here? How did you manage to create an account and start tweeting? How do you even know how a smartphone works? If you don't understand the difference between a border razor wire fence that is keeping out literal millions of illegal immigrants from just coming in. How do you not understand the difference between that and bringing legal, quote unquote, legal H-1B tech workers and stuff over here? Like, I'm not saying that separate thing isn't a problem. And obviously, it's a problem. Obviously, it's something that is non-ideal for a lot of reasons and needs to be reformed. But I would say that the literal millions of people who are just en masse storming through the border, being actively facilitated by the federal government, I'd say those are a little bit different.
No ID, nothing, just hordes of...
Yeah, I'd say these are approximately different things, and maybe we should react to them a little bit differently. So this is a strong statement from Mr. Abbott here to start off with. First of all, to even speak of something like the compact between the United States and the states. This is constitutional language that isn't fashionable right now. To even recognize that there is things like the states and the federal government and that there's a compact that exists between them. So one of the things with Abbott is he has, as an attorney general, a guy who is an absolute bulldog. Ken Paxton was the guy who filed the Texas v. Pennsylvania case. He's been on Tucker Carlson. You can go listen to him there. He is a bulldog, and he just survived an impeachment attempt from the actual rhino squishes in the Texas government, and he's out for blood. My assumption is that Ken Paxton wrote this letter. So he says, the executive branch of the United States has a constitutional duty to enforce federal laws protecting states, including immigration laws on the books right now. President Biden has refused to enforce those laws and has even violated them. The result is that he has smashed records for illegal immigration. Despite having been put on notice in a series of letters, one of which I delivered to him by hand, President Biden has ignored Texas's demand that he perform his constitutional duties. President Biden has violated his oath to faithfully execute immigration laws enacted by Congress. Instead of prosecuting immigrants for the federal crime of illegal entry, President Biden has sent his lawyers into federal courts to sue Texas for taking action to secure the border. President Biden has instructed his agencies to ignore federal statutes that mandate the detention of illegal immigrants. The effect is to illegally allow their en masse parole into the United States. By wasting taxpayer dollars to tear open Texas's border security infrastructure, President Biden has enticed illegal immigrants away from the 28 legal entry points along the state's southern border, bridges where nobody drowns, and into the dangerous waters of the Rio Grande. It's interesting that he has that little parenthetical thought there, bridges where nobody drowns, because the entire media establishment's angle on this has been that the Texas Guard is standing by as children drown in the Rio Grande instead of helping them because they're heartless and evil and all that. So this little parenthetical statement is like, the only reason they're coming there to drown in the first place is because you guys are luring them there. Under President Biden's lawless border policies, more than 6 million illegal immigrants have crossed our southern border in just 3 years. That is more than the population of 33 different states in this country. And I think this means the 6 million illegal immigrants have crossed our southern border. He's just speaking of Texas. So over the last 3 years, just into Texas, the number he's presenting is 6 million. This illegal refusal to protect the states has inflicted unprecedented harm on the people all across the United States. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and the other visionaries who wrote the U.S. Constitution foresaw that states should not be left to the mercy of a lawless president who does nothing to stop external threats like cartels smuggling millions of illegal immigrants across the border. That is why the framers included both Article 4, Section 4, which promises that the federal government shall protect each state against invasion, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which acknowledges the state's sovereign interest in protecting their borders. The failure of the Biden administration to fulfill the duties imposed by Article 4, Section 4 has triggered Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which reserves to this state the right of self-defense. For these reasons, I have already declared an invasion under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 to invoke Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. That authority is the supreme law of the land and supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary. The Texas National Guard, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and other Texas personnel are acting on that authority as well as state law to secure the Texas border. So this is strong language. This is like, I don't care what you think of Greg Abbott and his history of his political policies, him kissing the wall, him, whatever. Objectively, this is one of the single strongest statements that a U.S. politician has produced in I don't know how long, like in terms of like official statements. This isn't just empty rhetoric, because it's the type of rhetoric that isn't possibly empty. It can't be empty. You can't be calling him a lawless president, accusing him of crimes, and declaring an invasion and saying we're going to react to this as if this is an invasion, and if you facilitate that invasion, we're going to treat you as a hostile power. These are very, very strong terms. The brilliant thing about this approach that we kind of touched on in the last show is that this really, really puts the Biden administration in a pickle. Because they have two choices here. They can back down, which makes them look weak, and is essentially an admission of the criminality that they're being accused of. Or they can escalate. And escalating would mean this idea of illegal immigration is already massively unpopular. Something like whenever they do polls, and say whatever you want about the polls, but whenever they do polls, it's like 75 or 80% of people, of all Americans, of all political parties, believe that illegal immigration should be stopped. Most people aren't even remotely aware of the actual severity of the situation, the sheer number of people who come across. Like if you talk to some blue pill person and you try to explain this to them, like the official numbers are 8 million people came into the country illegally last year. 8 million people is like the population of Houston or something. I don't even know. I'm pretty sure that the population of the state of Washington is like 7 million people. The entire state. So what did he say here? It's more than the population of 33 different states in this country. So there's 33 states. 33 of 50 states in the U.S. have a population less than 6 million, which is the number that has come across the Texas border in the last 3 years. So this is, it's transparently the Biden administration engaged in open warfare, functionally, on the southern border states, particularly Texas. And
pretty clever calling it an invasion.
Right. Right. And I think so this is I think important, particularly as we talk about political strategy, messaging, the sort of things like moving forward throughout the 2024 and whatever is happening through all of this. There's a lot of people who have especially our guys, I'm very much one of these people, who has gotten really tired of hearing the term Constitution. It's like someone talking about the Constitution kind of is like, it's like a boomer signal. However, for the sake of political expediency and actually being able to rein in any of this sort of chaos that's being fomented by the radical left, being able to do things under the auspices of the Constitution makes the job a lot easier than otherwise. Because if we have to cross the threshold where we have to just throw out the Constitution, consciously throw out the Constitution, and then try to do things, there's going to be way, way, way more opposition to that. It's going to require the amount of political will that is probably not amassable in the U.S. and won't be for probably at least another 10 years, maybe more. So if your hope is that there's going to be something accomplished that is extra constitutional, you're just making life a lot harder on yourself. Now, it's possible that that's what it's going to eventually come to, but we can't just jump to that right away. because of the number of people, the number of good, decent, respectable people who are not remotely psychologically prepared for venturing beyond the domain of the Constitution. In fact, most of the people who are like, oh, just Constitution's stupid, we're trying to just throw it up, just tear it up and throw it away. Like most of those types of people, this is just like edgelord behavior. You wouldn't want to actually see what it would look like if we established a precedent with the way the society is right now, if we were just going to throw out the Constitution altogether and not even pretend that it's a fig leaf. The forces that would unleash would be immense. If you listen to the interview that Curtis Yarvin did on Chuck Dirk's show, that's Charlie Kirk for the uninitiated. The one of the points that he made that I think Chuck almost actually didn't completely pick up on it. What he was saying is that the actual brilliance of the Constitution is that the thing that we tend to hate about it, which is that it kind of like it doesn't hold anything back. It's kind of just like it's a malleable document, which sort of defeats the purpose in most cases. That actually can work to our advantage. Because what it means is that there's actually a path forward for our guys to amass executive power within the auspices of the Constitution. And if that's possible, then suddenly that means that the Boomerwaffen doesn't have to stand in our way of actually accomplishing something.
Have we come full circle on the Constitution?
I think that it has utility. I think being able to do something like Cable here says, he says it's kind of become a boomer talking point, but there's something to being able to say what the Biden admin is doing borders on, if not completely crosses over into treason territory. Yeah, like because this sort of thing is written down in like explicit terms. Sure, like the Constitution didn't do anything for preventing us from getting to this point. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be of some utility in wrestling control of the situation. It just means you have to be clever. Because I was thinking about this today, and well, here let me go to this other. What has happened since then is there's a few other details here to kind of flesh out exactly what's happening.
We got a super chat.
Oh, yes, we did. Let's see this. William Leonard, $5. He says, so whoever's doing this, their goal is to destroy the culture and overwhelm the welfare system. What do you think?
Probably in part.
Yeah. I think part of it is sheer incompetence. I think a big part of this, like the Biden administration is not full of competent people. If you see like pictures of the people who've staffed the Biden administration, these are like millennial shit libs.
Not only that, they're like, it's like, they're like from like a, like a B-list horror film. Like just these monstrous ghouls from the edge of like, the edge of the map.
You're right. Josiah said a shovel can get you out of a hole you dug with that same shovel. Right, yeah. You don't have to be ideologically devoted to the Constitution to recognize its utility in a particular circumstance. As for why the people who are doing this, I think one of their motivations is it's very short-sighted, and I think they've underestimated the political will that can be present within the population. But one of their motivations is bringing all these people in and getting them voting. There is nothing tangible that prevents these people from voting. And if you can bring them in and get them voting, you can also use them to, if you bring enough of them in and you get them all on the voter rolls and you get them all on the voter rolls as Democrats, or as any political party, really, whatever political party you want to use as the establishment party, then you can do like congressional representation apportionment updates. Or, you can go through and you could say, well, look at this population. There's so many people here, and look at the representation relative to the number of congressmen there. We need more congressional seats to suit this population, this new population that's here. So there's a political angle to it. There's also a cultural angle of just destroy, undermine.
It would be like so easy to just point out how absurd that is. Like, oh, you've got all these millions of new people. This didn't come from reproduction. Like,
Right. And this is where
whatever.
thinking through this kind of stuff. It's
Or maybe
like,
they're just thinking a generation ahead. Like, you get all the illegals in here, then their kids are American citizens. You know, I guess
right.
there's that
Well, yeah,
too.
that's another big thing. Yeah, the birthright citizenship is like you're essentially creating a docile, buck broken population that is easily controllable. The problem is, I think this is people who tend to get blackpilled about this sort of thing. I think their perspective is too narrow. I think their timeline is too short, because a lot of these policies, these undertakings, have been going on for quite a while. They've been in the works and then going on for quite a while. But the development of social media technologies and our population on them, and the enhanced ability to network and organize and create narratives counter to them, has I think it changes the calculus, but it's updating so quickly that a lot of the machinery of these sorts of institutions moves very clumsily and slowly, and you get yourself pot committed on a certain approach, and then you get a Trump phenomenon that happens. So Trump happens. Trump draws a whole bunch of people to Twitter. Twitter turns into the legitimate town square. Then they have to go through the whole Russiagate thing. They have to go through the Hunter Biden's laptop, all of these things. And then COVID and the electoral crisis, we'll call it. And all of these things happening, a lot of these are reactive. These are like we're starting to lose control of things, so we need to foment some sort of a chaos. We need to try to throw a stick in the spokes. We need to try to get back control of things.
Can we just take like a second to talk about how freaking weird COVID was? It's crazy to it feels like it was forever ago. It wasn't that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't that long, but it felt like forever. That was a weird few years, man.
I remember it being like if you would have told people then that things would be where they are now, in terms of Republican governors organizing and and that we would be as quote unquote free as we are now. It felt for a while there like the lockdowns were going to become like a real thing, like a regular thing that were going to happen a lot. But now, I mean, knock on wood, it would take, I'll say this, a lot of the things that have been happening have been really implanting themselves in people's minds. It's sufficient people that I think that each new op that comes down the line gets harder and harder to believe and harder to sell. And the competency crisis, that thing that is very real, is really making a lot of this more difficult. Because the people who are trying to execute these sorts of operations are becoming more and more retarded.
Yeah, like Kyle says here, imagine summing up 2020 to 2024 to someone in 2019. Yeah, dude, that was like a Twilight Zone episode.
Imagine trying to sum up 2020 to 2024 to someone in 2014, like even 5 years before. I mean, 1 year before it would have been difficult to believe. 5 years before it would have been like you're in a different world.
We've known each other for 4 years, dude.
Oh.
That frickin' flew by.
Yeah.
I keep telling people, oh, we met like 2 years ago or something.
You didn't give me a card. I'm offended.
I didn't get you socks with my face on it either.
Yeah. All right. So here's the an updated state. As far as I know, this is the last I saw. This is the number of governors who have now signed on to a statement in support of Texas. So again, I want to emphasize the language that Texas used was very, I don't want to use certain words. Big emphasis on states' rights. Big emphasis on states' rights in a way that is not fashionable to talk about. That the vast majority of people aren't even aware that actually exists. This is not Republican squish stuff. This is significant language. I don't want to use the terminology, but I think you guys understand the terminology that I'm hinting at here. This is expressing this is a legally sophisticated argument that is very well calculated at putting Texas into the driver's seat on this engagement with the federal government.
My stupid governor.
Yeah, so for people who aren't listening, or people who are listening and aren't watching, the only states that have not signed on are Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Kentucky, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, D.C., Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, Vermont, and Maine. Vermont is the only Republican governor.
Did you say
who has
Hawaii?
Not signed on. Oh, and Hawaii as well. I forget Hawaii exists.
Yeah. Hawaii.
Buck Johnson says the Abbott statement sounded like it could be written by Tom Woods, and I mean that as a compliment. Yeah, it does. So this is what these Republican governors all signed on to. A statement here. 25 Republican governors released the following joint statement in support of Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Texas's constitutional right to self-defense. They said, President Biden and his administration have left Americans in our country completely vulnerable to unprecedented illegal immigration pouring across the southern border. Instead of upholding the rule of law and securing the border, the Biden administration has attacked and sued Texas for stepping up to protect American citizens from historic levels of illegal immigrants, deadly drugs like fentanyl, and terrorists entering our country. We stand in solidarity with our fellow governor, Greg Abbott, and the state of Texas in utilizing every tool and strategy, including razor wire fences, to secure the border. We do it in part because the Biden administration is refusing to enforce immigration laws already on the books and is illegally allowing mass parole across America of migrants who entered our country illegally. The authors of the U.S. Constitution made clear that in times like this, states have a right of self-defense under Article 4, Section 4, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution. Because the Biden administration has abdicated its constitutional compact duties to the states, Texas has every legal justification to protect the sovereignty of our states and our nation. So this is I just don't know how to. I don't know how to say it in any other way. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. This doesn't mean that this is the happening. It doesn't necessarily have to be the happening. But this is a seminal moment. This is a legitimate, I don't know if you'd call it a constitutional crisis per se, but we're well on the way toward constitutional crisis, further than we have been in any time in recent history. Welcome, TK. Welcome to the King Pilled, another channel member, and he sends us a $5 super chat and says, apologies on behalf of Kansas. Pretty sure our governor cheated to win.
I think Arizona, you could say the same thing.
Yes.
Marshall Forward says, isn't Kentucky and North Carolina also at least Republican states, but they have Democrat governors? Is that the case?
Yeah, I don't know.
I know that's the case with Michigan.
Yeah.
If it weren't for frickin' Detroit, dude, it's Wayne County. That's the only thing. The rest of Michigan is just like, I mean, so red it's almost like black.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got frickin' Wayne County.
In Washington and Oregon both, basically everything outside of King County is where Seattle and Bellevue are, and then I want to say it's like Multnomah County or something like that where Portland is. Basically everything outside of that is all very, very red. Like Eastern Washington is one of the reddest areas in the country. I guarantee you they're all, I mean, those are good old boys. Those are good old boys where like if all Greg Abbott would need to do is send out a tweet that said volunteers needed, and there would be a caravan of good old boys headed from Eastern Washington down to Texas. They would be ready they'd be ready for a party. And that's what, like, That's the angle that this sort of thing is going toward, where that sort of sentiment exists and it's being stirred up. And I don't think people appreciate just how significant that is. This doesn't have. There's the whole nothing's gonna happen crew, like the guys that like are mad about Greg Abbott going to India and trying to import Indians to come work as in call centers or whatever. They're like, oh, this isn't going to turn into anything. This doesn't mean anything. Nothing's going to happen. Motherfucker, this is happening. This is already happening. There's not a question of whether something is going to happen. It actively is happening right now. And it's funny, before this public statement came out from these states, what's been happening is over the last day or so, all the different Republican governors have been coming out and tweeting support for Greg Abbott. Sometimes it's been secretaries of state or the political party for a given state has tweeted support for Abbott. But they're all coming out and they're all expressing support for Abbott. And what I was thinking is, now I don't know about the legality of aspects of this, but if you could figure out how to do this in a legal way, it would be great to see these states, like the states that signed on to this letter, or even a smaller group of them, organize something. You could call it maybe like the Constitutional Accountability Board or something like that. Just some kind of like anodyne name. But it would basically be an organization of individuals, of like a collective of individual states who are going to come together and they're going to ensure that they're going to hold the federal government responsible for adhering to the Constitution or something like that. It just has to be a really generic, like, it seems kind of meaningless, but in reality what it does is it begins to set up the appearance of a legitimate organizational structure that can either hold the existing federal government structure accountable to its mandates or pose as a legitimate counter option. Trey 50 Daniels says CRC, Constitutional Reinforcement Committee. Just anything like that. And again, it doesn't have to be. This is what these mouth breathers. Nothing's going to happen. Oh, it's just a show for the election. I mean, we're gonna have a case pretty soon where Greg Abbott is literally riding in a chariot with a battle axe, hacking the heads off of illegals, and they're going to be like, oh, he's just doing it for show. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's like, these guys are just so hopelessly black-pilled that they can't recognize an opportunity when they see it. And I think part of this is because there's this conservative instinct to be like, okay, we need to find just the right set of policies, instantiate those policies, and then dust our hands off and go on with our lives and let the government run itself. And then when any sort of crisis or any sort of thing comes up, they're like, okay, we need to find the solution that allows us to solve everything and we can go back to our lives. But unfortunately, that's not how you have a civilization. You have a civilization by each generation focusing their effort on maintaining governance structure in their society. This isn't like a job where you're just going to come up with the perfect code system and then just cut it loose and you're going to have automated government. That's how you wind up with the World Economic Forum.
But Bitcoin and the blockchain, dude.
Yeah,
smart contracts.
Yeah, no. They still require people. It still requires the personal investment. You have to be on the lookout for corruption, and you have to
I'm
be able
only
to
junking,
do
bro.
war with them. Yeah, I know. Glonk Respector says, conservatives really just want to grill. I get it, but those days have been over for a long time.
I love that name.
Just want to grill? Oh, Glonk Respector?
Yeah, Glonk.
Have you see his picture?
Yeah.
It's the really serious Down syndrome guy.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Shout out Glonk. If Red Caesar showed up, they'd still purity spiral and denounce him. Right. It just
Good thing Red Caesar doesn't need them.
Yes. And that's the thing is like, if you come out and you see this sort of thing happening and your instinct is, I don't even understand, like, what's the instinct? The instinct is, oh, nothing's going to happen. Is this just so you can, like, you put out your prediction and then if nothing happens, then you can go back later and say, see, I told you nothing was going to happen. Like, what's your function? What utility do you provide? Just the guy that says nothing's going to happen? Yeah, you're going to have a great reputation until one day when suddenly you're the moron who didn't see what was happening right in front of him and you got hit by a train. You don't need to have an opinion on what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, and it seems to me that like situations like this belie that these folks are still at heart like democracy simps.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, well, I don't have the one guy or the one solution. Yeah, there's not Red Caesar who checks off all of my lists, so therefore I don't support him. It's like, dude, if there was an actual Caesar, you're still thinking like in terms of democracy. Like, he needs to represent me and what I want.
Right.
Like, no, he doesn't. If he's here to rule, fuck you.
If there was an actual Caesar and you were like, you don't check all my boxes, so you don't represent me, he would go, okay. Just squish you. He's not going to represent your interests. He's going to represent his interests, and you're going to align with him by making your interests his interests. We need to rediscover patronage. This is like part of rebuilding a civilization is recognizing the necessary presence of patronage in healthy human societies. Kate said, Jesus Christ himself can return tomorrow, and they'll say, Fed PSYOP. Yeah, Buck really got James Lindsay. Yes, I mean, James Lindsay, I don't know who's had a worse last year, James Lindsay or Ron DeSantis, but James Lindsay decided, Pedro, James Lindsay decided yesterday that he was going to go, he was going to plant his flag on Texas nationalism as a Russian PSYOP, which, I mean, that's a bold one, man. Yeah, like, why don't you go tell some Texans that? Go tell some Texans that their nationalism, their Texas nationalism is just a Russian plot.
I have a theory that Hillary Clinton is like this succubus that goes and like possesses people and then speaks out their mouth. And James Lindsay is the most recent victim.
Our friend Crypto said, this is wild. It may in the end be a big non-event, but a map like this says that these governors are sensing a change in the wind and are allowing themselves to be swept along. Events are happening and new possibilities seem to be opening. This is the right frame of mind on this. You don't need to, there doesn't need to be the immediate solution that magically fixes everything. What we're dealing with is an evolving situation. And in the presence of an evolving situation, especially as chaos begins to bubble up, that's when you can get really hard turns one direction or the other. This is what provides the opportunity. What's up, Tommy?
The gang's all here.
James Lindsay is a tool, but for who?
Your mom.
Well played. Well played. So what this whole situation is providing is the opportunity for significant change to happen. But in order for that significant change to happen, it's going to require a sufficient number of people pulling their heads out of their asses and recognizing that a win is a win. Things are as bad as they are right now because right-wingers, Republicans, conservatives, however these different people decide to identify, they have like absolutely zero ability to plan or coordinate or engage in any sort of realpolitik. And anybody who does come out and actually engage in and recognize realpolitik and begin engaging with the system as it exists rather than as it ideally would exist, immediately gets ostracized as an outsider and a plant and a Fed and whatever else. So conservatives are continually just shooting their own dicks off. They are the reason. They are the thing holding them down. The Biden administration is a profoundly incompetent, buffoonish group of double-digit IQs. And yet they're able to wield immense power because whatever you want to say, conservative, right-wing, Republican, however you want to identify, because this group of people has not been capable of actually reading the room and understanding how to take power.
But Matt.
But Cooper.
But Matt. Devin Stack pointed out that Greg Abbott isn't taking this opportunity to talk about white in-group preference, so it's over, man.
Oh, man. I can't believe that he wouldn't do that. I can't believe that Tucker Carlson wouldn't publicly go out on his show and proclaim himself a white nationalist. You know, like he wouldn't go out there wearing a Ku Klux Klan hood.
Yeah, he's got his Wignet tattoo.
Yeah, clearly he's just compromised in all his, and you know, there's no reason for hope. I thought you actually flung your can. That would have been great.
No, that'd have been really bad. I've got like cables and cords and shit everywhere here.
I don't have time for these guys who just, their only function is anytime something is happening,
demoralize.
To go come up with a reason why it's not happening and demoralize people. They see it as them like being the purest of them all. They're the one who has all the best ideas. And everyone else is a bunch of retards because they don't have all the bright ideas like they do. But in reality, their only function is just to demoralize people. Like Devin Stack is, here's the thing is, I don't disagree with his worldview per se. I don't disagree with his premises. I think he has entertaining shows. I think he does a really good job of like film analysis. I think he's a really bright guy. But this insistence, and it's not just him. There's so many guys like him.
Our inaugural Gunic.
Yes. These guys who they're deep down, the fundamental heart of their message is we're isolated and alone and surrounded by enemies, and there's nothing that we can do, and there's nobody who will ever represent us, and anyone who claims to represent us is a snake, and you can't trust anyone. And the only way that there's ever going to be any sort of hope is if we get like a president who openly proclaims I don't know, his avowed white nationalism. It's like, do you really, you genuinely can't conceive of any sort of win condition short of that? I mean, how about we go for a little bit better than it is right now? Let's start with that. So if something happens, instead of figuring out why this is actually bad news, we could figure out why it's good news. How can we benefit from this? How can we use this to our advantage? When some great political personality shows up on the scene, instead of going and finding the one or two things where we disagree and then digging in and figuring out why he's a plant and why he's just here to subvert us all, use him instead. This whole like we have to go find the one thing we disagree on and then just black pill everybody because, you know, here's yet another guy who's just going to let us down. It's impotent signaling. You don't need him to let you down or not let you down. You need to use him. And to whatever extent they represent your interests, let them represent your interests. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I may not like the idea of importing a bunch of Indian immigrants, quote unquote, legally to take away jobs from Americans. I may not like aspects of that, but I'm not going to say, oh, fuck Greg Abbott. You know, he's just doing this for show because he's doing this other thing. Like, I don't care what other thing he's doing. He is giving the finger to the feds in a way that that hasn't happened in forever. Or here's the other thing. They'll say, oh, well, this is just going to be a pretext for Democrat states to use their states' rights arguments to just open their borders up and let people flood in. Okay, great. Let them. That would be perfect. Can you think of a quicker way to completely dissolve the union?
Yeah, no kidding.
It just... ugh. We need to make an edit of the... what's his name from the dude from the TV show.
The dude from
Yeah,
that guy, yeah.
yeah. Peaky Blinders. When he says he's like
Thomas Shelby.
Yeah. Stop fucking blackpilling. No blackpilling. No blackpilling. If you're blackpilling, you're out.
Oh, just as an aside, speaking of Thomas Shelby, I was I was watching all these shorts, like all these edits of like the Sigma male grind set stuff.
Uh-huh.
And they're always like I don't know. They're really dumb, but they're always like edits and clips and like I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like compilations of clips from Peaky Blinders with like Thomas Shelby walking around being all like mysterious looking, or it's Patrick Bateman. And I'm like, your guy's avatar? These are your avatars? Is this what it means to be a Sigma male?
You tell me, Cooper.
Yeah, you guys should just start putting together like edits of me. That's what you should be doing. Because I'm a Sigma male.
You should see Cooper dance.
Yeah.
I've seen it, and it's glorious. TK says, we're politically disenfranchised. Let's get depressed about every event. Is drinking to cure a hangover style logic. There we go.
That does work, though. At least temporarily.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's not in the long run. So, then, more recently, our favorite boomer himself has spoken out.
All right.
Donald J. Trump has posted on the irrelevant social media platform that nobody cares about.
Dude, if he gets himself like the presidency while posting on this stupid platform, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The only reason that Truth Social exists is so people can screenshot Trump's posts and post them on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
kind of like what that's what people have to do with James
retweets.
Lindsay because he blocks everyone.
Right.
You can't quote tweet him.
Like, he posted this, and at whatever point it took someone to take this screenshot, he had 1,700 likes. I remember when he used to post stuff on Twitter, and he would have like 500,000 likes in like 5 minutes. He says, when I was president, we had the most secure border in history. Joe Biden has surrendered our border and is aiding and abetting a massive invasion of millions of illegal migrants into the United States. I love the like random capitalization of nouns. We had the most secure border in history. He just like randomly capitalizes stuff all throughout him. So instead of fighting to protect our country from this onslaught, Biden is, unbelievably, fighting to tie the hands of Governor Abbott in the state of Texas so that the invasion continues unchecked. In the face of this national security, public safety, and public health catastrophe, Texas has rightly invoked the invasion clause of the Constitution and must be given full support to repel the invasion. Page 2. We encourage all willing states to deploy their guards to Texas to prevent the entry of illegals and to remove them back across the border. All Americans should support the common sense measures by Texas authorities to protect the safety, security, and sovereignty of Texas and of the American people. When I am president on day one, instead of fighting Texas, I will work hand in hand with Governor Abbott and other border states to stop the invasion, seal the border, and rapidly begin the largest domestic deportation operation in history.
Wow.
Those Biden has let in should not get comfortable because they will be going home.
Wow.
Oh.
All right.
I will not tolerate hearing anybody say that we don't live in the best timeline. This is just like reality is better than a movie. I gotta just one more time. Page 2. So like apparently on Truth Social, there's like there must be like a limit on the number of characters So he like makes one post and then he makes a second post and starts it off with page 2.
Because he knows someone's gonna screenshot it.
Yeah. He is just the best boomer. So of course, so all the doomers, of course, they see this and their
Not gonna happen.
Yeah, he's not going to do it. He's making promise. Remember last time he made promises and then he didn't keep them. It's not going to happen. He's just saying that. Oh my God. Do you know how you make sure that he actually does what you want him to do? When he says he's going to do something, you give him lots of plaudits. You encourage him. You stoke his ego. Like, if you want him to do these things, the last thing you should do is do the, oh, he's not going to do it.
No.
He's a Zionist. It's not going to happen. He's not going to do it. So, okay, so what is your counter proposal? What's your counter proposal for how we solve the problem? Or are you like, do you not have anything to bring to the conversation apart from just, he's not going to do it?
He's not gonna do it because he's a Zionist.
It just,
that basically is the logic. That's the argument.
uh-huh. Okay, so like that's the end of the conversation. All right.
Yeah,
Oh,
do
he's
you
not
or
gonna
do
do
you
it.
not want the illegals here? Like,
Right. What if he only deports half of them? What if he only deports a tenth of them? I mean, would you take that versus whatever alternatives might be? I mean,
even if he deported none of them, but he just locked down the border, no one else came through,
right,
and he just made them all citizens or whatever,
right,
would you take that?
right.
Just like, okay, problem solved going forward.
It just, but these aren't people who are actually interested in. They like to stroke their own egos. They like to pretend that they're the intellectuals. But in reality, they're just impotent, sad little men. And like really deep down, what they're expressing is like this entitlement of like, I'm owed this. You destroyed my country. You owe it to me. Give it back to me. Why don't you go contribute to getting it back? I don't see a lot of people. I don't think I've seen a single guy who is a doomer who's also like engaged in politics or actually has an audience that he's cultivating and pointing in a positive direction. We have right now the tools at our disposal to actually work together and influence events like this. I guarantee you that yesterday, the main reason why all of these governors began tweeting out support was because they were being inundated with tweets from people with big accounts. Orrin McIntyre was doing the Lord's work yesterday, putting the pressure on and trying to get these governors to attach their name to this. It doesn't matter if they believe it. We don't need them to believe it. We just need them to go through the motions. If they go through the motions, it begins creating the momentum. If your whole complaint about these guys is that they're just squishes who just kind of are just easily like coerced into doing things, then become the most powerful coercive force that they've ever encountered. We have the capacity to do that now.
Mm-hmm. We did a test run of that just a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Successfully.
If we want to get a message on the radar of powerful people, we can do that. But you have to have a message, not just doom, not just demoralization. You have to actually be dedicated to trying to create some type of a productive solution. And right now, if we can maintain the political energy to drive this forward, the thing that characterizes all of these Republican leaders, the fact that they're spineless squishes, actually becomes a perk to us. Because we can make them terrified of their constituents. Once we get into this type of territory, just about anything can happen, positive or negative. And the least productive position you could possibly be in is the nothing's going to happen, bro. That's like you are. We might as well just turn you into soap. Like there's nothing useful to you if you're just a nothing's going to happen, bro. Just keep it to yourself. One other interesting thing. So yesterday, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, came out and threw his support behind Abbott, which I definitely didn't expect because he is definitely a creature of the regime. And then the FBI's staff put out a letter a week ago. So as this whole thing was starting to build, they put out this letter here. You can't really see it. I'll just read it. Dear Mr. Speaker, Senate Majority Leader and Chairman, the subject is the United States is facing a new and imminent danger. As former senior executives of the Federal Bureau of Investigation with deep experience combating dangers to the nation, we write to express our concern about a current specific threat that may be one of the most pernicious ever to menace the United States. The danger arises from the nature of the threat itself. Wars and espionage and bombings and riots are sadly familiar delivery systems of instability, intimidation, and insecurity. The country has faced these and more throughout its history and is held together, though not without struggle. The threat we call it today is new and unfamiliar. In its modern history, the U.S. has never suffered an invasion of the homeland, and yet one is unfolding now. Military-aged men from across the globe, many from countries or regions not friendly to the United States, are landing in waves on our soil by the thousands. Not by splashing ashore from a ship or parachuting from a plane, but rather by foot across a border that has been accurately advertised around the world as largely unprotected with ready access granted. It would be difficult to overstate the danger represented by the presence inside our borders of what is comparatively a multi-division army of young single adult males from hostile nations and regions whose background, intent, or allegiance is completely unknown. They include individuals encountered by border officials and then possibly released into the country, along with a shockingly high estimate of gotaways, meaning those who have entered and evaded apprehension. In light of such a daunting, unprecedented penetration by uninvited foreign actors, it is reasonable to assert that the country possesses dramatically diminished national security at this time. The nation's military and laws and other natural protective barriers that have provided traditional security in the past have been thoroughly circumvented over the past 3 years. In 2021, the demographics of those crossing the porous southern boundary started to shift. Young men from around the world traveling alone and holding questionable motivations dramatically increased in number to become the most common profile of those breaching the nation's borders. A startling number have been found on the terrorist watch list or from countries designated as state sponsors of terror distinctly unfriendly to the United States. This is particularly alarming in light of the Hamas terror attack on Israel last October 7th. Those of us who have fought terrorism know that historically successful terror attacks invite mimicry. We know as well that terror leaders intentionally cultivate throngs of young men possessing a certain easily manipulated personality type to carry out atrocities. It is stark to say so, but having a large number of young males now within our borders who could begin attacking gatherings of unarmed citizens in imitation of 10-7 at the behest of a foreign terror group must be considered a distinct possibility. We would be remiss not to call out this potentially grave threat in the most direct terms. The warning lights are blinking. And yet this very real concern does not seem to be getting the focus it logically deserves. The director of the FBI has correctly assessed an elevated threat level since 10-7, but relatively little discussion has followed highlighting unsecured borders as a significant cause of this increasingly dangerous environment. It is a troubling concern that needs illumination, not avoidance. Any violation of the nation's immigration laws increases risks, but the surge in numbers of single military-aged males descending upon American cities and towns is alarming and perilous. Additionally, they are not just from the terror-linked nations, but from China and Russia as well, hostile adversaries of the U.S. with aspirations to devastate national infrastructure. For these reasons, elements of this recent surge are likely no accident or coincidence. These men are potential operators in what appears to be an accelerated and strategic penetration, a soft invasion designed to gain internal access to a country that cannot be invaded militarily in order to inflict catastrophic damage if and when enemies deem it necessary. This new reality, this never-seen-before threat deserves greater attention. The borders need to be secured against these young men, and those already here illegally must be identified and removed without delay. This will take the coordinated cooperative efforts of the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and the rest of the intelligence community to achieve. We encourage these actions and much greater congressional attention to this threat. The country has been invaded, an invasion that will continue as long as the nation's enemies perceive it will be tolerated. Until it is stopped, the United States is extraordinarily less safe and secure. Knowing all this, it would be a shameful travesty if some terrible attack, a preventable attack, were to occur against innocent Americans or the infrastructure that keeps the nation safe and functioning. The government will have failed grievously in its duty to protect. Sincerely, so this is Mr. Kevin R. Brock, Assistant Director, Directorate of Intelligence, FBI, retired, and Principal Deputy Director of National Counterterrorism Center, former. Retired Assistant Director, Criminal Investigative Division of the FBI. Retired Director of the Terrorist Screening Center for the FBI, and a bunch of other people. The reason why I am highlighting this is, number one, because of the actual substance of what they're saying, that there's the increased risk of some type of an actual, I don't know, terrorist event, attack, something along those lines. And this is the sort of thing that gets the actual serious people, the actual adults in the room. This is the sort of thing that gets them, as you can see in this letter, that it gets them very concerned. This is a week before the whole thing started going down with Governor Abbott. This is right around the time that I think that the case went to the Supreme Court. And these people they're accurately calling it out as an invasion. This sort of conversation beginning to happen within the extended network of DC professionals, and then as you start getting into military people, I've listened to some really interesting conversations with Eric Prince recently, which just the man is the definition of a statesman. He is a legend. But like, those are the guys who are really starting to pick up on what's going on, and they're very, very concerned about our posture with respect to China and Russia in particular. China mostly. And then this sort of thing, this invasion happening, these are becoming legitimate, like, civilizational crisis level issues. Where these are the sorts of things that cause regime changes in countries. So if you're like at the like nothing's gonna happen, bro, stage, I'm not saying something's gonna happen now. I'm not saying it's gonna happen in a week. I'm not saying it's gonna happen this year. But I'm saying that the nothing's gonna happen, bro thing has a distinct expiration date. It's gonna have to be retired here very soon, because politics now is not remotely like what politics was even 4 years ago. Having all of these governors all sign on to something like this that's explicitly hostile, that's coming out as like explicitly opposed to the federal government and calling the federal government out as lawless and facilitating an invasion. Having retired FBI, counterterrorism, Department of Homeland Security guys saying, hey, you guys are facilitating an invasion into the country of military-aged men. These are the sorts of things that get serious people very, very worked up. And this is why you can see the institutional money beginning to pull out. Like we talked about before, Jamie Dimon and Steven Schwartzman, Boris Johnson. A lot of these people who a couple months ago wouldn't have remotely associated themselves with Trump. You can now see that everything is starting to angle toward him because the incompetence, the sheer incompetence of the Biden administration is actually starting to cause major issues. So the one other thing that this starts to tie into is Trump's what everyone wants to know at this point is what's Trump's VP going to be? Who is Trump's VP going to be? And let me share the screen here, because these were some very interesting comments that I saw from Trump the other day. I'll play it and then we'll talk about it.
You said in our town hall that you had an idea, or you might have already decided about your VP pick. When do you think you're going to make that?
Well, it's never really had that much of an effect on.
Oh, come on. I've literally never had a video have a hard time playing.
On an election, which is an amazing thing. Both election and primary, it's never really had much of an effect. I may or may not release something over the next couple of months. There's no rush to that. It won't have any impact at all. The person that I think I like is a very good person, pretty standard. I think people won't be that surprised. But I would say there's probably a 25% chance it would be that person.
Is Senator Tim Scott on the list now?
No, he's a great guy. You know, he endorsed me. There's an example. Nikki comes from South Carolina. Tim Scott is from South Carolina. But if you look, the governor, great governor, another senator, Lindsey, we happen to like Lindsey. But Henry McMaster knows her very well. He endorsed me. It's very hard for a governor to endorse somebody when you have, I mean, Henry McMaster was the lieutenant governor under her, and he endorsed me, and he's going to be here tonight. In 15 minutes, you're going to be watching him speak. I'm going to introduce him. He's a great guy. He's done a great job. So everybody, almost everybody in South Carolina has endorsed me. What does that tell you?
Said in our
I love that guy.
I just had to let the whole thing play out because he asks him. That whole last minute was all him responding to the question: Is Tim Scott on your VP list? I mean, I gotta admit, the dude can filibuster like an MFer.
He's got a sort of his voice. It sounds a little more. I mean, I know it's many years later, but it sounds kind of frail compared to,
Mm-hmm.
just a few years ago.
He genuinely looks not like most people who go through the presidency. Like, you've seen the pictures of George Bush before and after, Barack Obama before and after, and they looked like they'd been aged by 20 years. He doesn't look that dramatically affected, but he definitely does look older, slower, more low energy. He's not quite as bombastic as he was before, which I mean, it's been 8 years since 2016. He's almost
How
80.
old is he?
I think he's 78. Let's see.
He's they got to get him
77.
back on the stimulants.
Yeah. So some of his comments here were very interesting to me. So, number one, he says he doesn't think it'll matter electorally who his VP is, or he's been told that it won't. He's repeating it, which that's kind of, I want to know where. That's not the sort of thing that Trump would just know. This is one of those things where Trump had a conversation with someone and they said, that actually doesn't matter, and he's just repeating it. It's very interesting. He says his time frame for announcing it is some point in the next few months, which is also kind of interesting. He's making it sound like, we got basically, we got till the summer or whatever, there's no big rush on it. And it's kind of I think people are very curious to know who your VP is. I think there's the idea that there's no rush. I mean, yeah, maybe there's not a rush, but I think there's probably a lot of people on across a spectrum who are very curious to know who his VP is, because who his VP is will signal some things. And the other thing he said is that the person he wants would be someone that he perceives as normal or unsurprising. Now, the most surprising things to me that he admitted was, number one, he doesn't know who it'll be. Now, it could be, as Cooper mentioned to me this morning, it could be that the reason he doesn't know is because he doesn't know if the person's going to accept. Someone could reject him. But that would be an odd thing to acknowledge, because that doesn't exactly make him look powerful. It doesn't make him look like the magnetic superstar. So it's just kind of from a branding perspective, that would be sort of a weird thing to admit. But the thing that stood out to me the most is he thinks there's a 25% chance he actually gets the person that he wants. That is a very odd thing to say.
Dude.
The only way I can make sense of it is that there's like 4 candidates on the list, and so he wants the one person, but then there's the other 3. But like the fact that number one, Trump wouldn't know who his VP is going to be, and that he only thinks there's a 25% chance he's going to get the person he wants. The fact that those would be the case is surprising to me. It's even more surprising to me that he would publicly admit it. That just seems odd. I don't know why he would talk about it that way. Now, Sebastian Gorka, who is a guy who is close to the Trump campaign, he has been saying for a while that he knows who it is, and he let it slip that it's a he. And then I believe the other thing I heard is that he said that it's someone it's a guy who is in politics in New York. So from there, basically the only 2 people who would be possibilities would be Lee Zeldin and Rudy Giuliani. I would be really shocked if it's Rudy Giuliani. I don't think. Well, okay,
Dude.
What?
Isn't it crazy to think that 2016 was almost 10 years ago? It was like almost a decade ago. What are we going on? 8 years? 8 years?
Yeah, 8 years.
8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that.
What were you doing 8 years ago?
I was, I had just graduated high school. Just turned 18. Getting into all sorts of trouble. Just being a degenerate.
8 years ago, I had just met the woman who would become my wife. I was
Me too.
working at a Volvo heavy machinery dealership. And yeah.
I also met my wife 8 years ago.
That's such a crazy how much time has passed. Like, not just how much time has passed, but how much has changed since then. Like, how drastically different the world is. Like, 8 years ago, 2016 feels like it was like 20 years ago.
Yeah. It also feels like it was just kind of yesterday at the same time. Like, I feel like I just graduated high school.
You look like it too.
I know, especially since I shaved.
It's funny the way that the shadows are on your head. It kind of looks like you have a yarmulke on right now.
Does it? I look like a lesbian. With this haircut.
So right now, the betting markets, let me see what they are, if they've updated. Trump VP betting markets. Odds checker, Republican VP nominee. Okay, here's your list. So I've got a theory about what's happening with the VP thing right now, but the top candidate right now is Elise Stefanik, who is I think, congresswoman from New York. She's
What's
young.
she look
She's
like?
been a big MAGA one.
Need a physiognomy check.
Yeah.
The only, along with phrenology, the only 2 hard sciences. True hard sciences.
There's her with her face kind of squished. There.
Hey, she's just like me. She's got crooked eyes. Mid.
Then number 2 is Kristi Noem, who is the governor of South Dakota.
What's she look like?
You're gonna like this one better.
Okay. Too much makeup. Better. Too much makeup. Yeah. Who were we talking about earlier?
When?
On the phone. Who were we talking about? And I was like, that is my type in a nutshell.
Oh, Taylor Lorenz.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just keep taking us on detours today. Sorry, guys. Not so much in these pictures. Must have
Yeah.
been the lighting. I don't know.
Here's the video, I think. Okay. So yeah, at least Stefanik, Christy.
How do you
then
pronounce
Vivek.
physiognomy? How do you pronounce it?
Physiognomy?
Yeah, you pronounce it that way?
Yeah.
Okay, Josiah Spurgeon out because the G is apparently silent. I don't care.
I've never heard somebody pronounce it without the G.
Physiognomy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it would make sense to me that the G would be silent, but I've never heard anybody pronounce that. And pronunciations are just conventions anyways, so. Number 3 is your boy Vivek Ramaswamy. Number 4 is Ben Carson. Number 5 is Tim Scott. Number 6 is Nikki Haley. Number 7 is Carrie Lake. Number 8 is Tudor Dixon. I have no idea who Tudor Dixon is. First of all, I would really not want to be the person named Tudor.
What's Vivek look like?
What? Here's Tudor Dixon.
Yeah.
Can we get a ruling?
Yeah, like a 5.
Cooper has high standards.
No, it just not my type.
Kate J says Christy is an adulterous and corporatist whore.
So am
What are
I.
your real feelings on the matter, Kate?
Yeah. Are you mad?
So I don't think, number one, okay, well, so let me share my my theory about what's happening with the vice president right now. So my theory is that there is a war over who is going to be Trump's vice president. And what this is going to determine basically is which cabal of people are going to be pulling his strings while he's in office. On one hand, you have the, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, Republican establishment, Zionist, neocons, old money, whatever you want to call it, the BlackRock, State Streets. You have these people on one side, the Mitch McConnell wing. And then on the other side, you have the, for ease of reference, PayPal Mafia / Project 2025 people. And if you look at we are going to do an episode on Project 2025 and go into more detail on it. But if you look at the plan that they've laid out, it actually is almost 1-to-1 with what Vivek has described. Essentially doing an immediate blitzkrieg right after inauguration, like blitzkrieging through and cleaning out the administrative state, shutting down FBI, DHS, CDC, Department of Education, the FDA, just going through and just mowing it through, like firing like 75 or 80% of federal employees. They've laid out a specific game plan for how they would go about it, and then there's other stuff associated with it as well. But they're basically marching in lockstep. I've never heard Vivek mention Project 2025, and I've never seen or heard any of the Project 2025 significant people really pumping Vivek, except for Charlie Kirk. That would be one potential connection there. But otherwise, this is what they're describing. And Vivek, in one of the interviews, mentioned how important the position of the officer, or the Office of Management and Budget, and the Office of Personnel Management, which is basically the CFO of the executive branch and the HR head of the executive branch, and that these would be the most important positions to fill to accomplish a lot of this. My read of the situation is, as we've outlined on here before, you've got this kind of a mounting movement, sort of organized, organic, inorganic, I'm not sure exactly, but between the tech bros, broadly speaking, and overlapping with the more Heritage Foundation wing of the Republican Party. And their goal is to not have, they want Trump reelected, but they don't want to have the same thing happen that happened last time, which is he got surrounded by a bunch of Zionist snakes and they just kneecapped him every time he tried to do anything. They've learned from that. They're specifically calling it out and they're saying, we need to have the people in place and the plan ready to go so that we can blitzkrieg through immediately upon inauguration. In order to do something like that, this is my guess as to what they're presenting to Trump. They're telling him, you're going to accept our VP. If you accept our VP, this is the way your administration's going to work. You're going to be the figurehead. You get to take all the glory. You get to do your speeches. You get to basically continue campaigning, receive reports, and our responsibility is going to be to execute your vision. Your vision being the vision that we're providing you as your advisors, which is exactly how his administration functioned before. He had his stuff he wanted to do, then he got some of that, and then his advisors fought against him and pushed back and whatever else. These guys are like, we want to execute your vision. We believe in America first, and these are the America first policies. You agree to all these policies, right? Yeah. Okay, great. We're going to get you rubber stamping stuff for us. We're going to run your administration for you, and you get all the credit. Which means his VP in that case is going to be someone who has to be a true believer in the cause, has to have high energy, command significant respect, be very fluent in the operations of the bureaucracies, the DC, being able to speak DC and operate and function within there to be effective. They need to be very good at administration, and they're essentially going to function as kind of like a shadow president.
I could do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You would be my pick, Cooper.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I think this is the PayPal Mafia / Project 2025 guys. This is the read that I'm getting, that he's being given a choice between that and whatever, like Ben Carson or Kristi Noem or like some woman. Like, so if Trump selects a woman VP, like, it's all over. If Trump selects a woman VP, then I'm going to be blackpilling here. Because
do you think if he picks Ben Carson, he'll teach me how to crip walk? Uh-oh, I broke him.
I'm imagining Ben Carson crip walking across the stage at the RNC. And then coming up with his sleepy eyes, he like crip walks across the stage, and then he's like, "Hey, everybody." Oh. So I think someone like Tim Scott or Ben Carson or Lee Zeldin, like, these are all like squishes. I think that's probably the type of person that Trump wants. He probably wants someone who's not going to outshine him, someone who doesn't have more personality. And look what like Pence. He agreed to have Pence because Pence has like the personality of a dried out loaf of bread. And what's also significant then is the role that Pence wound up playing in 2020. And I think that's one thing that the actual like conservative America First MAGA Republicans don't want to find themselves in that situation again, where the VP is going to turn on Trump and stab him in the back. Trump wants someone who's basically a pushover. This is the read that I'm getting on it. Trump wants a woman so he can appeal to the woman vote, or he wants a black guy so he can appeal to the black vote. Like, he's thinking in these terms.
So we can all crip walk.
Yeah. And I mean, you see Tim Scott is just like, is just following him around.
Who is Tim Scott? What does this guy look like?
Senator, I think, from what do you call it? South Carolina. He's
okay.
the guy with the teeth.
Some shithole state.
Yeah, this guy.
Oh yeah. I didn't know he was. I didn't know he knew how to crip walk too. Thought it was a white guy.
And apparently, so there's been rumors for a long time. Like Tim Scott is 58, and apparently is just engaged for the first time, if I understand correctly. There's been rumors for a long time that he was gay, and kind of like Lindsey Graham, and then suddenly, like a week ago, he posted a video or a picture of him on the beach with his wife. Oh, they're married now. And then Trump, they got some line. What did Trump say? He goes, oh, and Tim, he's married. We never thought it would happen. One of those things where Trump is just, Trump says the stuff that nobody around Trump wants him to say. Oh, God damn it. But I think if we see it wind up being someone like Tim Scott or Ben Carson or Kristi Noem or the only woman who wouldn't have me like completely blackpilled would be Carrie Lake. I don't think it's going to happen, but I mean she's an ass kicker, and she seems like someone who would legitimately be ideologically aligned with the whole America First thing enough that I think I would probably, I wouldn't be completely without hope. But if it's like Kristi Noem or Elise Stefanik or something like this, this is not a woman's job. This cannot be a woman's job in this particular, like, if the whole point is like we're taking over the executive branch and reestablishing executive authority in Washington,
Yeah, manly.
You're not going to do that through women. Sorry, it just isn't going to happen. So I think that the powers that be who have talked themselves into, okay, we're probably going to have to deal with Trump. Well, we want to make sure that he has a VP that we're not like, that's not going to have us over a barrel at some point. We want someone easily manipulated, easily to control, someone who's just a figurehead, basically a Republican version of Kamala or like Mike Pence. And I think that there's a legitimate effort being made to put someone else in there. I don't know who that someone else is. I don't even know where to begin thinking about who that someone else would be. But I keep coming back to Vivek just makes too much sense. He fits the profile perfectly. Age-wise, experience, his experience in dealing with these bureaucracies. He's very clearly, like, intimately familiar with the plan and can speak on it at, like, off the cuff at length, in great detail. And I mean, I don't think that Vivek is the person that Trump has been planning on. I don't think that Vivek is the person that Trump wants, because Vivek would be the star of that administration. But what it also sets you up for is Vivek as running for president in 2028 and then again in 2032. Those puzzle pieces just fit together too well. They just, I can't help but think that they fit together too well. I don't know that Vivek would necessarily want to do that, but in a recent interview, I didn't get the clip. Maybe I'll have it for the next show. He said something about how someone asked him if he wanted to be VP, or if he would be VP, and he said, what was the answer he gave? I wish I would have saved it. He said basically if Trump came into him and asked him to be VP, he was like, I'd be honored, but basically my answer would be, are you planning on really doing this? Like, are we going for, like, balls deep? Or are we just going to try to reform? Because if we're just going to try to reform and just sort of, like, slap some paint on it, then I appreciate it. It's an honor, but I can affect more change elsewhere. So he basically said, this just kind of is reinforcing to me what I think I'm seeing, which is that Vivek is the tip of the spear of an organized counter elite who have inserted themselves into Trump's campaign, and they're running him now. They're handling him. They're leveraging him into getting Vivek into position as VP. And then Vivek's job is going to be to run the executive branch on behalf of Trump. This would be, if I was to predict something right now that seems most plausible, this would be the thing that seems most plausible to me. I'm not confident that that's what's going to happen, but of all things that I've heard, that's what seems most plausible to me. The flip side of it would be, as Tatiana says, Trump is going to be stupid and pick someone who backstabs. Like, ultimately, what Trump is going to have to decide is, do I want to bite the bullet and bring along the superstar and basically let him pump up my tires for 4 years and run the show behind the scenes and let me take all the glory for it? Or do I want to get some sort of a squish and think that I'm going to go in and take everything on and I'm going to do it and I'm actually going to be successful this time? The one candidate that I've heard that I genuinely would not know how to feel about it would be Donald Trump Jr. On one hand, Trump Jr. seems like kind of a boob to me.
Yeah.
On the other hand, like, father with his son as the VP, that's, we're starting to get into like royal, kind of like the idea of royalty and like royal families and stuff. And that's the optics of that would be interesting. And I don't know if maybe Junior is actually cutthroat behind the scenes, but he just kind of plays a boob on television. I don't know. Trey Daniels is vengeful son. Yeah, there you go. There's your vengeful son. So now if you do something to Trump, you have to deal with his kid. I don't know.
But Matt.
What?
Isn't he married to a Jew?
I don't think he is. I don't actually remember if he's married.
One of them is. I want to be press secretary. That would be so much fun.
Yeah. I really want to see Cooper as press secretary. Looks like, okay, yeah, Kimberly Guilfoyle he's engaged to her, supposedly.
No.
She's the one. Do you remember during COVID when they had like her giving a speech, but it was like,
I was just joking. I don't care who they're married to.
No. There was this great clip where she's giving this speech. It was like a Republican National Convention speech, but it was during COVID, so there was nobody, and she was just being streamed in this empty room, and she was trying to rise to a crescendo, and she's like, "The best is yet to come." And it just fell completely flat. It was one of the cringiest things that I've ever seen.
Can we watch it?
Let me see if I can find it. Kim Guilfoyle. She's interesting because she was once the significant other of Gavin Newsom. Okay, here we go.
Ick.
Oh my God. This is going to hurt you, Cooper, I promise.
Oh man, here we go.
The cringe factor is significant here.
America, it's all on the line. President Trump believes in you. He emancipates and lifts you up to live your American dream. You are capable. You are qualified, you are powerful, and you have the ability to choose your life and determine your destiny. Don't let the Democrats take you for granted. Don't let them step on you. Don't let them destroy your families, your lives, and your future. Don't let them kill future generations because they told you and brainwashed you and fed you lies that you weren't good enough. Like my parents, you can achieve your American dream. You can be that shining example to the world. Manifest and be the change in this country that you dream, that you hope, that you believe in. Stand for an American president who is fearless, who believes in you, and who loves this country and will fight for her. President Trump is the leader who will rebuild the promise of America and ensure that every citizen can realize their American dream. Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, the best is yet to come.
I hate that it cut off the end of that there, like it with their little like banner or whatever, because in the moment, like she does that, the best is yet to come. And then it just hangs there. And it's like, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
That was literally painful for me. And who is she?
Kimberly
dating-
Guilfoyle.
was she-
She's the fiance of Trump Jr.
Why, dude?
2-Bit Podcast says,
That
wow,
right
now
there
I hate
would be-
everything.
Yeah, that would be like if I were dating her and she did that, like I'd be like I know we put you up to this, but the delivery was pretty I'm sorry, but I've got a side chick. I'll see you later. It's pretty mid too.
Like, I don't know if that would have been
Like, dude, you're a billionaire. Why are you dating her? Ick.
like, I don't know if that would have been better if there was like a crowd of people who were like cheering and everything. If it would have tamped down the cringe a little bit. Like, part of it is just like by herself shouting in a room with it echoing. Like it to me, it reminds me of like when I was in like speech stuff and
Yeah,
like, you'd
at least
go,
if there was, like-
practice to an empty room.
At least if there was a crowd, she'd have an excuse for yelling.
Right. But it's just, oh yeah. The glorious things that COVID gave us.
We need a palate cleanser. We need to watch that chick on Bill Nye.
Oh no.
And
No. We can't do it.
I'm kidding.
I actually want to do it, but it would definitely get our get the video demonetized. Let's see. What could we get as a palate cleanser? Let's try this. Oh, Brody Alexander, member for 2 months. Thank you, Brody. He says, Vice President Tucker Carlson. I wouldn't hate it.
It's very dead.
Okay.
Okay. Well, anyways, we're coming up on 2 hours, and I've got to I'm going to do another conversation tonight with 2-Bit Podcast. We're going to be talking, do another live reading, or continuing our live reading series with Curtis Yarvin's Patchwork. We're not going to be doing it live, but it will be posted on his Substack. So I believe it's called Notes from Down Under, something like that. I'll kind of vamp here long enough to give him time to tell us where to find it, how to find it. We did part 1 last week, and we're using Moldbug's Patchwork as a way to flesh out this civilizational versus primal frame idea that Jason's been working on. So
Tomorrow night.
what's that?
Tomorrow night. We've got an interview.
That's right. I almost forgot to mention that. Tomorrow, we are going to be talking to the man, the myth, the legend, the Prudentialist. Confirmed that tomorrow it'll be at, I want to say, 5 p.m. Central. You just follow me on Twitter, at RealKingPill. I'll tweet it out tomorrow. But we're going to be talking to him about basically current events, what's going on, PayPal Mafia, that sort of thing. So we would love to have you guys join us then. We'll have a great conversation. He's a good guy. I very much enjoy the Prudentialist's streams with Oren McIntyre. So we talked to Oren last week, I think it was. We're going to talk to the Prudentialist. And then we've got some other interesting guests coming in the near future as well. So thank you guys for showing up, for watching, joining us. Until next time, toodaloo.